Alright, we should be live. Give it a few seconds for YouTube to catch up. Okay. Check, check, check. Check, check. Alrighty. So this is a talk that I've wanted to do for a long time. It's going to be very quick because I have some beans cooking. So I will revisit it, I would imagine. So here's a cover I made a while ago. You can tell I don't look the same anymore. Alright, so we don't have the whiteboard set up yet. I just started arranging the space like this. And I've got to figure out a way to get the whiteboard up there. It's pretty narrow now. Anyway, scarcity mindset and backfooting. So I made this slide on the left side of the screen. Just thinking about backfooting, not so much on scarcity mindset, but we can, pardon the noise here, we can discuss the scarcity mindset portion as we go into the examples. So I'll link a 3-minute video clip in the description that talks about backfooting pretty well, and basically it's where a person, typically a narcissist, accuses you of something falsely, which is itself abuse and often is projection of what they're going to do to you. And because of the false accusation, you become defensive if you're following the script. And when you get defensive, your vibration lowers and you're more likely to do something called reactive abuse, which is where if somebody punches you, you punch them back. Well, you've both done violence. Reactive abuse is a little bit misnamed because usually the school bully will have some power advantage over you, like they'll be much bigger, or they'll be, the child of an administrator, so they're not going to get in trouble. That they know that if you tell on them, it'll basically get lost in the paperwork. But when you do hit back, now especially in today's day and age where everyone has a cell phone camera and things like that, they can hit you, press record, and then you go crazy and hit them back. Like, there's some example of a kid just like wiling out on an administrator. I mean, there's at least a couple. They're wiling out on school administrators for so long, they push them so hard, and then the administrator does something back. That's reactive abuse. It's not right, but it's like the dog kicked into a corner example. Like, eventually, no matter how good, how loving, how well trained, how nurtured, cared for, whatever, a dog kicked into a corner is going to bite back. So that is what the false accusation is trying to provoke. And so that's the game of the situation. So they might not be consciously aware of this. It might be given to them through their upbringing. Perhaps they grew up in a toxic home. They saw these sorts of games work from one parent to the other. And then they learned them with their siblings, or their siblings used them on them, so they got more and more examples of this game. And they learned it, and they learned that they get what they want when they do this game. Of accuse them of something they didn't even do, watch them get mad in response, right? Probably all of us have witnessed something like this. So this is called backfooting, and you can think of the name like when you get defensive, you lean onto your back foot. So I might have briefly explained it in a video before, but yeah, it seems like something that most people can understand if it's explained in a compressed way like that. So, all right, what are the different situations where backfooting might be applied, and what might the game be? So, workplace violence. This is like the nearest and dearest to my heart. This is the situation that really got me figuring out what this narcissistic abuse is, and, pulling the rope into my past. And, once you figure out the narcissistic abuse games, once you figure out what a narcissist is, then you start to figure out, usually if you're in that kind of situation as an adult, you're groomed to be in it since you were a child, and you've had a lot of different narcissists in your life doing these sorts of things to you. And then you figure it out, you get the language for it, and then you're getting flashbacks. But then you can let them all go, because when you understand the nature of a narcissist, you can just let it all go. Because you understand that not everybody is like you, not everybody has empathy. There's the gradient of, between having empathy and not, in some areas and not others. And narcissists just straight up have basically sold their soul. They have no empathy. And there's, narcissistic on that scale and straight up narcissist. And there's reprobate. So there's reprobate and there's sinner. So sin means miss the mark. So there's people who are missing the mark. But if they're doing it unknowingly, they're still covered by grace. But once they're knowingly missing the mark, then they're no longer covered by grace. And at some point, then they are given over to a reprobate mind. So they say, double-minded, child of the devil. And the devil doesn't need to be a guy with a pitchfork, right? It's sort of like positive and negative polarity. Like, one is creative, loving, giving, empathetic. The other is taking, parasitic, chaotic. The empath is more orderly, growth-minded, etc. So, the workplace violence situation, right? So, accuse me of doing something violent to my coworkers. 3 people file a HR report saying the same thing, basically workplace mobbing. That's compelling enough that the investigation doesn't even need to hear my side of the story, by some standards. 2 witnesses make the truth. Well, if two people can still lie, right? So the truth does always come to light in time. So I contest this and say, well, when do I get to give my input? And there's not a chance to give my input. And so, let's see, too many details don't matter, and I've covered this so many times. But basically, by the time I request to speak with HR, I'm fired already. And so this is all unjust, unfair, leaves me in a chaotic situation, and so I'm prone to do some kind of reactive abuse. Did I? Definitely not. Until 2 or 3 years later. So I got another job, went okay at first, and then it got weird, and then I left. Got another job, went okay at first, and then it got weird. And then I pressed for details, got some details that found out that the false accusation was still coming through the reference checks. And then I left. And then, I started my own thing, and I called some lawyers, and the lawyers basically said, yeah, good luck, buddy. And so I'm like, I don't really want to be starting my own thing. I'm not really ready to be starting my own thing. I mean, it's always, back since high school, I found some papers saying my dream is to run a software company. So I'm just not ready. And especially financially, not ready. I'm where I want to be. Life is great. And then this injustice happens to me. And so, yes, then I email them, I give them 2 or 3 chances by email, and I say I'm going to talk public about this. And I talk public about it, and guess what happens? Then we start getting complaints in the court about how I'm making threats of violence and things like that. So it's like it went from behind closed door reference check to in the public record, in the court, accusing me of violence. I've never been violent. So now it's like you do a Google search for my name, it says I'm violent. You do a background check on me, it says I'm violent, right? So this is like politically weaponized backfooting, right? Like the more injustice they do to me, the more angry I should be getting. And, you know, eventually when I get angry, it's going to prove the claim. So, all right, that's a long time. You know, like basically the tweeting, what they give like a 250-page complaint to the court. So that apparently proves the claim. And, you know, why didn't I show up to defend myself? It was to do with pandemic, and they filed it in a farther away court that I couldn't get to as easily, especially while I was between jobs and just starting a new job when the actual hearing was. And so, you know, the game of the situation is, you know, protect management, beat this guy into submission, and, you know, protect the company. You know, make it so that, you know, the company remains as stable as possible and this person can't get any kind of settlement. So another one is Stevie's house. Say that you're staying with a relative and his name is Stevie, and, you know, things have been not so smooth, but they've been okay. And so you create a Trello board with all the chores that you've been doing. There's my beans. With all the chores you've been doing, and he gets the email notification about the new board being created. He comes home that day, you go to talk to him, and he explodes on you. What's this Stevie's house thing? Blah, you better delete it before I check it, blah, blah. Like, it just gets super angry, basically insinuating what's on it. Like it's something that's, you know, defaming him or making him look bad or something like that. But really it's just a Trello board with cleaning schedule and things like that. Improvement projects that could be done. You know, basically some form of accountability, because you see that Stevie doesn't seem to be that accountable, doesn't seem to be that organized, so you make the Trello board being proactive, and then he explodes on you and calls you, you know, insinuates that you're doing something negative. And then you stop talking to Stevie, but you still keep staying there. But, you know, then it's just like he keeps abusing and escalates abuse, gives you reason to speak out. So now you start posting things online about how Stevie is abusing you, and he knows that you're trapped there, have no other choice because of the workplace violence thing that had already happened, right? Well, it seems like a lot of bad things are happening to you, buddy. Like, again, when you're groomed for narcissistic abuse from birth, then it keeps happening to you. And so once your life is finally destabilized to the point where you start reaching back out to people for help, you're going to find your good friend was a narcissist, your close relative was a narcissist. All these people are narcissists because they saw that you didn't have boundaries. So it's going to be like person after person that you reach back to is going to end up abusing you. And so, yes, it does seem like a lot of people are abusing me. There's even more people who are not abusing me, but they're just wisely staying silent, right? Can't really fault that as long as they don't remain friends with the people who I claim are abusing me. If they do that, then, you know, they need to be cut off, right? So there's 3 more examples that I could be going through, which is where, you know, basically they accuse you of something. It's often something that they're doing to you, projection, and it puts you into a defensive state for some outcome that benefits them, whether it's conscious or unconscious to them. Like, there's some incentive for them to get a reaction out of you to cover up their wrongdoing, or there could even be more involved plans going on, like even conspiracies between relatives. Like, it doesn't even have to go that far, though. It can be simply they've learned this program and they're repeating it. And, you know, the narcissistic playbook is the demonic playbook. They're like, I've talked a lot about, you know, scarcity mindset being totally predictable and abundance mindset being creative. Like the demonic playbook, the narcissist playbook, same thing. Like basically a narcissist being empty vessel that allows demons in. So yeah, you send a narcissist to prison, they can be deprived of all the entries for demons, and they can be delivered. You know, a lot of people find the creator when they go to prison, and that's why. And so, anyway, went off on a couple tangents there. Didn't quite cover all the examples, but that is backfooting and how it leads to a scarcity mindset, which puts you into that non-abundant, non-creative type of thinking, reactive, and then you end up proving the claim that is made in the initial backfooting. Or, you know, another aspect is just changing your behavior. The 3-minute video that I'll link goes through an example of that, where it's like, oh, you're always nagging me to clean, and so that you stop asking them to clean, right? So that's another way that the outcome of the false accusation can benefit the person who made it, aside from getting you to go into reactive abuse. So thanks for joining, and I'm going to go enjoy those beans and rice. See you next time. Bye.